All right. And so I'm going to go ahead and start us off and welcome everybody. I also, while I'm doing that, uh, Kelly, I do want you to, I think you have the ability to share. So if you want to pull up your slide, feel free to do that while I am welcoming everybody. So I want to welcome everybody. Today is, my gosh, our March B2B meeting today. For those that don't know what day it is, it's March 11th. And if it's 3:30 and you are just figuring that out, you are worse off than I am. So, but my name is Beth Butler Fatal. I am Executive Director of Disability in North Carolina. And we are a private nonprofit supporting employers across industries, all with that disability lens, creating opportunities for individuals with disabilities, whether that is through your supplier engagement, whether that is through your workforce and hiring, retaining employees, or if it is about marketing to the customers out there with disabilities. So it is great to have you with us today, and excited to have our speaker join us today as we talk about navigating the DOJ mandates. For those that are not familiar with that, you will be by the end of this call. Kelly Jan is with us, and she's going to talk to us a bit about these upcoming mandates. So April is kind of the deadline for some as it relates to the kind of the implementation of these digital compliance and accessibility mandates. So we're going to learn a little bit more about that. And Pat Kuehl, my operations director, is with us as well. Pat is going to just watch the chat. So we always encourage you during today's call, if you have questions, we will have a Q&A opportunity at the end. We also encourage you to use that chat feature to just engage with one another. If there is something that strikes you during Kelly's remarks, please, mention that, ask questions, engage with one another. When we designed these business to business meetings, it was just for that. And that is to create community among our current members and partner companies, but also to invite those of you that may not be members yet, but want to learn a little bit more about the work that we do. And we always try and bring topics that are of interest to our members and partners across industry. So sit back and relax, and we look forward to today's remarks. And so with that, I do want to introduce you to Kelly Jan. Kelly is the Senior Business Development Executive at Recite Me. She is a proud Charlottean, and in fact, I learned earlier today that she was in sixth grade the last time we had the amount of snow that we have experienced here in Charlotte in the last month or so. So I don't feel so bad now, because if it's been since you were in sixth grade, Kelly, it's safe to say that I won't have to go through this again. I am a Florida girl.
Hopefully not.
I am a Florida girl yeah, my history started in South Florida, so I know nothing about snow, and I'm done. I'm done with winter. So I'm thrilled that it's 80 degrees here today. So but Kelly, we appreciate your expertise as you share today about digital accessibility and compliance. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and we look forward to learning more about Recite Me and the work that you do.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Beth. I will say a little bit more about myself. So my name is Kelly, and as soon as I married my husband and my last name became Jan, being from the South, it's Kelly Jan, Kelly Jan, Kelly Jan. And I do tell people, no, I mean, that is a last name. I mean, I don't mind you using both, but you don't have to say them all always together, right? And they're like, oh, I thought it was a double first name, like a Southern thing, right? Kelly Jan. I'm like, no, no, I get it, but nope, that's my first name, my last name. But yeah, did grow up in the Charlotte area, graduated from East Meck High School, got my undergraduate at Gardner Webb, and then did live in the DC area for about 8 years, and then have been back in the Charlotte area now since about 2012. So I've now lived, my husband and I have now lived together longer in North Carolina than we did in Virginia. And so he's originally from Boston. So he doesn't quite get to claim being a Southerner, but we're working on it. We're trying to convert him. But I appreciate you all being here together. And Beth and I have been working together through just our efforts in the digital world of helping to educate, just like the Disability Inn is all about education and helping to empower the community and those around them to be accessible and to be inclusive and to not make somebody feel like they've always got to raise their hand to ask for assistance, but that there are tools that are readily available. And that's what Recite Me is all about. And that was born from our CEO's own need to have tools in his own life. And so we are a disability owned company, which I think is always nice to talk about because it's coming from a lived experience versus just a perceived experience, which I think is very powerful. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do first is just talk a little bit about what you're going to learn today. And Beth and I are going to be sort of chatting back and forth about some of the maybe frequently asked questions about the DOJ mandate and what does digital accessibility mean. But I want you to be able to gain some of those insights, hear a little bit of my experience and maybe your shared experience of compliance versus accessibility. What are some strategies that you can put in place as a company to be not only more compliant, but also accessible? And how can you empower your team to not only you as maybe the head of your company, but if you are in HR, if you are in marketing, if you're in sales, what you can do to help empower those around you? And again, even educate your colleagues on how to be more accessible. I
Great.
don't know if Beth is there.
I am, yes, and I'm so sorry. My microphone was being funky. Um, so yeah, I love it, and we're excited about the topic. One of the things that I think we really want to know, and that is the big question is what is accessibility, and kind of what does that mean when we think about online presence?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. The definition of being accessible is meaning that it's capable of being reached, it's capable of being used or understood, or easily accessed by people with disabilities or adapted for use by those with disabilities. Think about when the ADA came into effect and businesses needed to have ramps, businesses needed to have accessible parking spaces, bathroom stalls, braille, things like of that nature in government buildings, publicly accessible buildings. And so now we've moved that into the digital world. So accessibility online means your website tools, your forms, technologies that you as a company are using to hire folks, to train your employees, to sell your goods, or just to get information out to students, families, citizens, patrons, whoever that happens to be that visits your website. And more specifically, making sure that all of that information is perceivable and understandable and people can navigate that digital landscape if they may happen to have a barrier because of a disability.
Great. So what is when we think about ADA and that those Title II standards, what exactly does that mean?
Okay. So Title II is part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. I talked a little bit about ramps and different physical accommodations. That's part of the ADA. But Title II specifically focuses on equal digital access, meaning websites, mobile apps. And right now, the standard is WCAG. So that is sort of like the ADA piece, but the online standards against different rules that have to be followed and tests that are placed against digital assets. And there is a mandate that websites have a 2.1 level AA level of compliance if they're in certain categories. They have to meet that Title II standard. And there is a legal requirement under the ADA for state and local governments, and that can include libraries, museums, school systems, housing authorities, transit authorities. If it falls under that state and local government, then that is included as well under Title II.
Okay. And so when we think about the Department of Justice and the mandates that we're talking about in terms of the ADA, what is that exactly, and how did that come to pass? I mean,
Yeah, no, great question. So it seems like the ADA has been around for a long time, but when we think about it, it's really not been that long. So in 1990 is when the ADA was signed into law, and in the year from 2000 to 2010 is when we start talking about Title II to include websites and digital services. It wasn't until 2018 that the WCAG 2.1 was published. And now, fast forward to 2024, there was a final ruling by the Department of Justice, meaning a mandate that went out as an announcement, saying that all websites and mobile apps needed to conform to WCAG 2.1 level AA. Those entities serving 50,000 or more citizens or patrons or students in a community need to comply by April of this year. So we're talking about, 6 weeks from now, because the deadline is April 24th of 2026. Entities serving less than 50,000 people have until April of 2027.
okay. And so the organizations then, I assume, they know who they are, or are they notified, or how?
So there wasn't a, yes and no. I will tell you that there was notifications that went out, and a lot of entities, for example, maybe we'll use a community college as an example. They fall under the DOJ mandate, and they might say, okay, well, we're in the city of Chicago, but our community college only has 5,000 students. So that must mean that we have until April of 2027 because we only serve 5,000 people. Well, it's not about how many enrolled students you have. If they're in the city of Chicago, they have the opportunity to serve all the people that live in the city of Chicago. And so that's well over 50,000 people. And so I think some of it is not so much that people don't know that they needed to comply, is that they didn't understand that which deadline they fell under. The same thing could be for a housing authority or a transit authority. I just met actually today with a housing authority. They're in a county of more than 50,000 people. And when I met with them, they said, yeah, well, we have until April of next year because we only house 1,000 people in our housing authority. And I said, yeah, but you serve a county with 200,000 people. So you
Oh,
you actually have 6 weeks, and they were shocked to know that. And so I think that's part of it too, Beth.
yeah, wow. But so what happens if you're not ready? I mean, what do you do?
Um, So if you fall under that federal, state, nonprofit, private employment entities, colleges and universities, if you're under that umbrella
Uh-huh.
and you aren't complying, it can, I mean, it is a mandatory thing. So if you fall under that ADA for Section 508, you do have a legal obligation to meet that. Now, what can happen is there's a couple of things. So someone who actually has a need could file a complaint under Title II and say, hey, I have a screen reader. I can't access your website. I don't use keyboard command. I mean, I can't use a mouse. I need to be able to use keyboard commands and I can't access your website. So a person could file a complaint. You could also have, I mean, we all know that there's the ambulance chasers of the world, and I feel fairly strongly, just like we happened when the physical pieces of ADA came into under mandate for, like I said, ramps and bathrooms, that there will be class action lawsuits that will come into effect. And then what we've been told by the DOJ is that they will start systematically auditing entities as well to find out who is in compliance. So there is that piece of it as far as fines and whatnot. Um, but it's not just about the legal risk of a monetary fine. You also risk excluding your customers, excluding your employees. And with this right around the corner, it's something that entities really need to be thinking about, because if they aren't, what's really at stake there. Like I said, there's a monetary piece of it, but there's also that human element as well.
Yeah. So what is your recommendation then? I mean, in terms of if organizations are not ready, what should they be doing right now to get ready? And what steps kind of would you say they need to take before that deadline?
One of the, and I think that we're talking about compliance for sure for that deadline, and that is that accessibility statement. And so I
Mhm.
really want to sort of start here where it talks about this accessibility roadmap. Recite Me can help you really at no cost to you to have a very, very clear accessibility statement that says, hey, if you come to our site and you experience an issue, raise your hand, reach out to us via email, call us, let us know so that we can try to make an accommodation for you. That's a big part of it. Recite Me has an accessibility toolbar. And if you've ever been, I'm sure all of you have been to the Disability In website, they utilize our toolbar to give people real-time tools to enact a text to speech, to be able to change the color, to be able to change the font. So that's a real-time way that you can provide your site visitors with tools. We also have a tool that helps to check the back end of the website, and we'll talk a little bit of that about a little bit of that where it will identify areas that need to be fixed. And all of that is working with somebody who is an expert in the space because most organizations, you might be an expert at selling homes, or you might be an expert at cleaning houses, or you might be an expert at whatever your business focuses on. But that doesn't mean that you're an expert on how to build compliant digital environments. And so bringing on a partner to be able to help you to navigate that.
Right.
Um, so I'll walk through a little bit of what we talked about. So I mentioned the accessibility toolbar. So I'm just going to go to the Disability In website right here, just very quickly. And I would encourage you that if you've not been to the Disability In North Carolina site recently, you should go check it out. You can click this little button right here at the top that says Accessibility Tools, and it is going to open up a toolbar that will allow you to enact text to speech. It will translate the site into over 130 languages and read it aloud in over 50 languages. Because we think about it about disabilities, but sometimes it's just a disadvantage. It could be a reading level disability, it could be a literacy barrier, it could be someone who is colorblind. And I know we talked a little bit earlier about the difference between compliance versus accessibility. Your website could be 100% compliant down to the letter of the law of the code. But if I have a contrasting disability or I'm colorblind, I still may not be able to see what's on the screen. So it's sort of taking that into account. And again, I would definitely recommend that you go and check this out on the Disability In site. I talked a little bit about the compliance piece as well. We do have a checker that will in a fully automated way, go through and show you, hey, these are the images that you didn't tag. We found some videos on your site that didn't have captioning. Here are some buttons that are not accessible by keyboard only commands. And it gets very much into the technical side of things. Now, there's no magic wand. That would be nice. And I will tell you that there are companies that exist that I would consider to be some of the competitors of a Recite Me that have been under some really big scrutiny from the Federal Trade Commission because they claimed to be able to make your websites completely compliant by just the touch of a button, and it's just not possible. You need to have a tool, but our tool is there to help you to be able to identify where the fixes are and give you a very clear dashboard to go in and make the fixes, and then over time, again, to continue to remediate and get better and better and better for your legacy content as well as content going forward. And so that if someone never did raise their hand and say, hey, I'm filing a complaint, you can say, happy to help you there. If and when you're audited by the DOJ, you can say, hey, let me show you the history of the scans that we've been running. Let me share with you reporting on what we've done to continue to try to stay in compliance.
Hmm. So does the checker, and I love the demo. Does the checker fix everything at one time?
I would love to say that it does, but again, we talked about that magic wand. I mean, man, if I could come up with a magic wand for a lot of things, I think we'd
Right.
all be on Shark. We'd all be on Shark Tank and be millionaires, right? But it's really about improving that score over time. And so our tool will allow you to identify the highest priority fixes based on your highest traffic pages and looking at that site visitor journey. And then over time, creating a systematic way for you to improve over time. I mean, I know that when we meet with many entities, we do a site map scan for them, and they're like, holy cow, I have 10,000 things that I need to fix. And it's that sort of idea of, well, how do you eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time. But at least we're helping you to get a plan in place because for many organizations, it's not just one person who uploads 100% of the content on a site. For especially for government or universities, there's typically a department head or someone who is within a particular office of finance or administration or the business school or whatever that happens to be. And if they're able to run their own scans of their own section of the site, it allows everyone to have ownership of that continued remediation and compliance.
Hmm. That's great. So yeah, when we think about, I mean, think about the PDF documents that are out there on people's sites, right? And the gosh, there's just a ton of organizations that really house a lot of critical information, right? For the folks that visit their sites. How can you help them? I mean, with so many documents out there that are in that PDF format,
Mhm.
how, you know, how can you help them?
So we find that it's very, very common for organizations to have upwards of, I mean, anywhere from 500 PDFs hosted on their website. I've seen over 500,000 PDFs on a site. And typically we find, especially within government, a typical PDF can have an average page count of 20 pages. So when you're talking about 100,000 PDFs, at 20 pages each. I mean, you can start to do the math there with wow, how many pages is that? Oh, and you mean that Title II is your PDF documents too, not just the website? Yes, anything that you're hosting digitally has to be compliant. And we have a tool, this piece of, unlike the checker, where it's a tool that helps to show you how to go in and make fixes yourself, for the PDF remediation piece, we are able to go in, identify the landscape of your PDF, share with you the total page count, when the PDFs were created, what of those PDFs can be archived, because if it is archived, you don't need to remediate it. And then of what's left, we can help you to go in and we are going to take that PDF, run it against all 28 tests for PDF compliance against WCAG 2.1, make all the fixes for you and give you back that fully clean document that you can then put back up on your website. We have heard that on average, even someone who is an expert at PDF remediation, it takes about 30 minutes to an hour per page in some instances to make a PDF document compliant. So if we're
Wow.
talking about hundreds of thousands of documents that are 20 pages each,
Hmm.
that very easily becomes not only one person, but that could become a whole department's full-time job. And it's just impossible, right? So if that's also part of the DOJ mandate, which it is, we're also providing a service to be able to go in and help you there as well.
That's awesome. So I do have one question here in the chat. So I think it's a good one. Does Anne is asking,
Sure.
does the accessibility kind of the mandates include social media or is that separate?
So it does include social media, but those are that falls on the owner of social media. So for example, if you are putting content out on LinkedIn or if you're putting out a post on Instagram or Facebook from your company, um, you don't have control over the code So let's say there's a button on LinkedIn that's not accessible by someone who has keyboard only controls. You're not held responsible for that because you don't own LinkedIn. But the information from your own website that led them to, let's say you've got a little button that somebody can click to go to your Facebook page or go to your Instagram page or go to your LinkedIn profile. If you don't have a tag behind that button on your
Mm,
own website to take you there, or
mm,
that button is not accessible by someone with keyboard only controls, yes, you are held responsible for that. But once someone leaves your house, so to speak, I like to think about it and share it that when someone's in your home, is if you're responsible for the cleaning and the maintenance of your house. If somebody leaves your house and walks across the street, you don't have any control over what happens between your front door and the next building.
mm. Right. No, that's great. I'm thinking, about the accessibility tools that are kind of built in, right, to some of the platforms that some of us use. um and are you finding that there's a kind of a false sense of security out there among some organizations that say, oh well, as long as I'm clicking on a button in my document, then I should be good to go, and
I think there's two ways to look at it. Yes, it can be a false sense, especially from that when we talk about compliance versus inclusion. It's almost like saying, well, don't people already have it on their phone? Or like you said, don't people already have things built into their computer? And they may, but it's also sort of, it'd be like if I said to someone, well, you're in a wheelchair. Why don't you have your own ramp in the back seat everywhere you go? You would expect the bank and the movie theater to have a ramp for you. This should be your problem. And people are like, oh no, nobody would ever do that. But by saying that, like, oh, just download your own software, pay for your own thing, that's sort of the digital equivalent of that. So I think that's one piece of it, Beth. The other part is um, not everyone is accessing your content from their own device. I mean, think about how many people go out to websites and they're at the community center on their laptop, or they're they're at the computer lab in a library or on their college campus, or they're in the high school counselor's guidance office and they're researching what college they're going to go to. And so it's very hard for it to be machine or device specific. It needs to be something that lives and breathes within that website environment to know that whoever accesses it from wherever and using whatever device is going to receive not only a compliant experience, but have an accessible experience.
yeah, that's great. Let me just check and see if there are other questions. And while I'm doing that, are there key takeaways from today's, what I mean, if there are some things, because I'm not a techie digital person, right? And you've shared a lot. So when we think about key takeaways from today, what is it that folks need to know?
Absolutely. It can be seem like a very daunting task. And so we want to try to give you some very actionable steps, starting with that accessibility statement. Um, I'm sure all of you have gone into an elevator at some point, especially if you live in North Carolina. And I always called her Cherry Berry. I don't know if that was her name, but I'm talking about the in the elevator, the commissioner for the elevators. Does everybody know what I'm talking about? And it said, this it has been approved, and this elevator has been checked and all those things. But if you want to see the full certificate, you need to go to the building manager's office, right? And so having that accessibility statement lets people know that, hey, we're working on it. We're aware. We know this is the mandate. If you have an issue, please let us know. That piece, and I'll share this in just a minute, but Beth and I have been working together to make sure that as disability in members and being involved with disability, and that you have access to get one of those accessibility statements at no charge to you. So that's number one. Requesting a scan of your environment. Again, working with disability in, we're going to make that a way for you to be able to do that at no charge. So getting a scan. And at that point, you've got sort of a benchmark of where you are now. We're going to help you to identify the issues, prioritize the fixes, help you through our dashboard to then look at your organization and delegate that amongst your staff, and then create a sustainable remediation program going forward. Now, Beth, I know that you wanted to speak a little bit to this as
Yeah.
far as a landing page that we have created for Disability In.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm excited that as Kelly said, we've kind of worked together, and we do want to provide you a free accessibility, both the statement template, which we'll send out, but the free website accessibility check by scanning the QR code. And we'll include that link even following today's call. A lot of you guys know that we'll send out a link um, for the video, right? This live video, so that you can pass along. Maybe there's somebody in your organization that needs to hear what Kelly has shared today. But we want to make that available to you, as Kelly said, at no cost. In addition to that, because we have worked so closely with Recite Me, we are going to be able to offer you some of the Recite Me services at a discounted rate. So if you are interested, if you are a member of Disability in North Carolina, let me preface that by saying, if you are a member or partner of ours, we want to extend that opportunity for discount on those services, because this is important. I mean, when we talk about making our workplaces accessible and creating cultures that are open and welcoming to people with disabilities, that includes your online presence as well. So yeah, we're excited about bringing this to you.
So I will just preface this, and Beth is going to be sending out a follow-up email. If you're looking at my screen now, or you're looking at your screen, you're seeing this QR code. When you click that, it is going to take you to a landing page that was created for Disability in North Carolina. You have the ability to put in your company's website and click Scan Now. That will alert me to get a report to you that I will deliver straight to you. Also, there are some other free resources that we have put together specifically for Disability In. You can scan a PDF to get an idea of, wow, do we have PDFs on our website that aren't accessible? We can help you there as far as, helping you to realize what help you may need. There is a template that you can download for a free accessibility statement for your website. There's also a free template that you can download that is an online accessibility and inclusion toolkit that are just it's a library of information that you can use to share with folks within your organization who are asking you when you leave this workshop and you're saying, "Man, I learned a lot." Well, what did you learn? What can we disseminate amongst our peers here within our organization to learn how to be more inclusive and accessible? You can download that as well.
So we're
Fantastic.
hearing thank yous for the free offerings, and also Ann McIntosh had another lengthy question to ask.
Yeah, I see that. So I'll just go ahead and read it. I think that's probably the best way to do that. So anytime we review software, we ask about the accessibility. Is Microsoft Office in compliance all the way? A yes or no. Is Canva, Facebook, Instagram? We ask our third-party vendors to make sure that they are in compliance, so we are in compliance, as well as having your website developer to check behind, right? Hopefully these software developers are making this accessibility front and center with their products, and yeah, as long as for their customers. And yeah, you want to comment on that, Kelly?
Yeah, it is I mean, it's paramount that you are asking these questions of your third party vendors, because ultimately you are responsible for the vendors that you choose to use. And especially if you have sections of your website, let's say if you have a calendar or a GIS map or where you are using a third party through like an iframe to get information to come onto your website. You're hosting it, but you may not own the content. But it is something that you are hosting, asking the question of your vendors, are you compliant? I think it's great that that Anne asked the question about having your website provider to go back and check behind, making sure that that compliance is there. Because ultimately, if someone raises their hand to file a complaint, it's against you. They don't know that you work with ABC web hosting company. They don't know that you didn't create that map that's hosted on your website. And so, in terms of the level of compliance of Microsoft Office, I don't know that. But I do know that it is very important that when you do work with third parties, that you are, I mean, it is part of your due diligence, even when you're choosing a third party to work with, that they are up to date on compliance and that they can share a VPAT with you, that they can share with you their accessibility statement and plan, because it's just as important as you having one yourself.
Yeah, that's a great question. It takes me back to the accessibility when I mean, I think of the number of times that I've heard employers say, they've launched a new internal platform, right? Or they've shifted their whole IT department and issued new laptops or a vendor that houses all of their email, right? Uh, those vendor contracts were always, they get the head nod, oh yeah, we're compliant. And then they come to an employee that has magnification software, for example, or uses a JAWS software, and then they find out that what their vendor said may or may not have been 100% accurate, right? So it is important for us to be asking those questions and making sure, because at the end of the day, just like you said, they're your vendor, but you're responsible, right, for that accessibility to your employees and ultimately to your external patrons, right, customers, and the like. So good
And
stuff.
it's not just the ADA. I mean, we're talking a lot about DOJ today. You have to think about, if you're a housing authority, there's the Fair Housing Act that talks about reasonable accommodation. So it's not just, I mean, that's completely separate from ADA, but still relates to those with disabilities. There is the Civil Rights Act and Title VI that talks about making accommodations for those that don't speak English as their first language. There is the when you're talking about being an equal opportunity employer. So if you have 15 or more employees, making sure that when someone is trying to apply for a job and they're on your career site, can they access the content that's within, to find out about the job? If they, uh, you know, part of what we do as well is we can scan your site and tell you the reading level of the content on your site. And so depending on the jobs that you are hiring for, if you have, and we find that many websites have a college level or above reading level requirement to be able to understand the information that's being provided. And if someone doesn't have that reading level ability, they may be they may be a very skilled worker, and may be able to do the job perfectly, but they can't navigate through the job hiring process, and again could file an equal opportunity employer, a complaint there as well. So I don't want you to think, yes, we talked about the DOJ today, but software and accommodations go well beyond ADA.
Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Questions, other comments, questions for Kelly? Oh, Kelly, I appreciate it. And it's a great segue too into our next presentation that's we do these B2B meetings every month, and actually our next presenter will be from the EEOC. So April 8th,
There you go.
yeah. So that was an unplanned segue. But yeah, I want to invite you guys all to join us on April 8th when we'll hear directly from Emily O'Connell, who is an outreach and education coordinator, and she is going to talk to us about disability rights in the workplace, protections, accommodations, and obligations there. So yeah, that was an unplanned segue, but Kelly, we appreciate so much your expertise, and as we said, we will definitely be sending out links that give you guys the access to the items that we talked about. So and again, if you are interested in learning more about our partnership and with Recite Me, and or if you're interested in making that decision to join us as a member or sponsor, please reach out to us. I can be contacted at beth@di-nc.org directly, and we'd love to get you involved in what we're doing here. And we have great partners, as you can see. Recite Me is certainly one of those. So, Kelly, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.